right. Next up, we have Global Cannabis Applications Corp. It trades on the OTC Pink sheets under the symbol FUAPF. Global Cannabis Applications is a global leader in designing, developing, SaaS licensing, and acquiring innovative data technologies for the cannabis industry. Today, we have Global Cannabis Applications CEO, Brad Moore. Welcome, Brad.
Hey, Anna.
All right, whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
All right. Well, I'm excited. I hopefully I don't have to talk too much about COVID, and we get to talk about marijuana, which is always a very much uplifting thing for everybody. Start off with thanks to everybody who's having us here today. And special thanks to the team at Emerging Growth and our friends over at FMW for helping facilitate. This is always a very unique opportunity. And it's especially unique for us too right now because in the last few months, we've had unprecedented growth, close to actually over 1,933% uplift. And, that I don't think as a CEO, there's many times when you get that opportunity. We look at what happened with our friends over at GameStop. This is not about shorts. It's not about this. Today, I want to show you what's actually driven and is driving that forward momentum for us. All right. So normal stuff, forward-looking statements. Obviously, we're here to talk about what we've done, where we're going, and to that point, you're actually going to see in the presentation these orange boxes. Those are actually press releases that we put into the decks to show you what we've executed on. And so you get the idea going forward, we actually will do what we say we're going to do. So, our name kind of belies what we do. Cannabis and applications. In the middle of that is cannabis data. Obviously, we're global because we're around the world. And so one of the biggest things I think, is the demand for any level of data around this is huge. There's a lot going on. It's all decentralized and it's not coming together in one spot. And when you think about things that are medical, for example, if I go buy this product for recreational, well, why is it any different if I buy this product and they say it's for medical? The source of information is at the paramount center of this argument. And while clinical studies are great, we're measuring a plant. And when you measure a plant that doesn't start off with a formulation, how can you guarantee that what comes out and goes into this is the same as what that plant was? So that data is important, but where the demand is coming is for what we call full life cycle data. And at the end of that data, there's a consumer. That consumer data attached to that gives a level of insight. And, once again, it's something that we can do today that isn't being done. And to that point, you'll actually see a very significant repercussion of something that's happened recently in Canada that I think really speaks to the problem. So last week, Bloomberg announced an article or written an article that Health Canada was probing cannabis labeling amid canopy growth potency complaint. And this just isn't about canopy. This is about many growers saying the basic test is for a lab test, a clinical lab test that says THC CBD ratios are this, and then they label that on the product. On this particular product, you can actually find the CBD THC potency. So the real challenge is now, once again, going into that argument, if you're putting this into your body and it's not labeling corrected, where's the compliance? Where's the regulatory framework? Where are the tools that actually allow somebody or a grower to deal with this? And this issue never comes up. I mean, this is not just about what's happening in Canada in the recreational market. This is what's happening straight across the board. There's a lack of information because there's been a lack of process controls and tools to do that. So not to bore you with a demo about our product, we're actually going to, like for me showing it you and my engineers yelling at me because I don't do a good job, we're going to actually show you a quick product video now. And so if we could cue that up and run that, I'd appreciate that.
Powered by TraceLocker, Citizen Green Efixi is the world's first blockchain-powered RegTech compliance solution that enables a fast, agile registration of medical cannabis and CBD products. Simple, secure, and intuitive, Efixi was designed with leading medical cannabis and CBD cultivators from Israel, Canada, and Switzerland, and was built to align with their cultivation, distribution, and compliance processes. Let's follow the journey of our favorite medical cannabis grower, Susan, as she uses Effixi to help her successfully grow, test, and ship her products to market. Effixi allows growers like Susan to record each of the critical steps involved in cultivating and distributing. At the heart of Effixi lays a powerful blockchain back office that ensures every piece of information is recorded, secured, and associated with a verified user, a recording process called attestation. Each user profile is created by establishing a blockchain e-wallet on their smartphone through the TraceLocker KYC app that verifies a person's identity during registration. All personal contact information, including photo ID, is validated according to local regulations and in compliance with international AML standards. Only verified users may record events. Using her smartphone's Face ID, Susan enters cannabis event details that are immutably notarized on a blockchain. Effixi has made the process seamless so that every step of Susan's cannabis product journey can be thoroughly verified by regulators, customs officials, and consumers. Excited to get started, Susan uses the Effixi app to set up her company's profile, including logo and grow location. Next, she defines the base mother plant for each product grow, including the genome and seed, as she records all relevant information related to the mother plant's life cycle. Susan's farm has multiple large greenhouses with separate grow zones. Susan is ready to start growing a cannabis batch. All the steps from taking cuttings, taking pictures, noting the growing zone, watering times, pesticide use, and lighting can all be logged using the app, right up to harvesting. With her batch ready for sale, Susan takes that next step, product testing by a lab. She creates a lab profile that includes the lab name, address, and the weight of the test sample. Then she takes a photograph of the shipping label. When the lab verifies potency and terpene analysis, Susan takes a picture of the lab report, and now this entire cannabis batch is shown to be legally compliant and ready to be packaged and sent to the market. Effixi continues to help Susan in her business's next phase, getting her cannabis product to a distributor or retailer. Using the app's proprietary process management, Susan creates a unique QR code for her shipment called a digital twin. The shipper puts the QR code onto the shipment, so when a customs agent scans her Effixi QR code, a web page opens that provides all the relevant information about Susan's shipment. All the attested events entered by Susan and her team are viewable through a QR code scan. Because this information is tamper-proof and attested to by a natural entity, the agent is happy to authorize the shipment for entry, and soon Susan's products are ready for sale. Finally, the distributor that receives Susan's shipment scans the QR code using his app, thus making the digital twin QR code as delivered, thereby preventing the cloning of such valuable QR codes by potential bad actors. From cultivation to retail, only Effixi's unique application of advanced RegTech technology guarantees consumers that Susan's products are compliant and are the right choice for them.
All right. Thank you for playing that. So hopefully everybody got a good vision out of that. While if those challenges that we're having north of the border right now, if we were using the software, they just wouldn't be there. And to that point, the level of data that you saw, we are actually approached before we even really kind of went to market and did our first deal last November. We are in negotiations with data providers because they knew what we were doing and we were talking. And then in January, we signed forward-looking contracts to buy for these people to buy data from us. And it's interesting the people that they're selling this data to. They're selling to hedge fund managers who use it to measure their own investments on how things are going, because this is an incredible level of information. And then they're selling it to the accounting firms, the big four type accounting firms for obviously similar purposes. And then to some major pharmaceutical companies who are looking to buy this data. Well, I've got a few names of who they are, but I'm not at liberty to say. But what I can say, they probably perceive it, we're doing the work and billing it. Why not just buy that and use that for their analysis and their own path forward and how they look at medical cannabis? Now, what you saw were 5 interlocking technologies that actually all work together. And these are all built to a HIPAA and what we call an EU GDPR privacy standard. So the idea, once again, this can be used on a global scale anywhere. This Our stuff is not a minimum viable product. Like I said, we're revenue producing. We're just above the gate. We're just getting going, but the apps are available, downloadable online right now for businesses, and the consumer version of it too, which is free for them to use. And so essentially, a company like Canopy could download it and engage us in a service contract, and we could be off to the races. This is the $6.5 million investment we've made over the last 5 years of doing research has now developed us into what we now have is a $55 million plus company. All right. Oop, jumped ahead there. Apologies. Need to get backwards, so maybe can move me backwards 2 slides, please. Okay. There we go. So to protect that investment, we actually in 2019, we filed a patent called Seed to Seed. It's cannabis on the blockchain. Now, this trademark is free to Seed to Seed, which has also been filed. The patent reads this way. This is the label. It's a mouthful. The system of processing, tracking cannabis products and associated methods using blockchain. In there, it talks specifically about patient efficacy. Once again, if you take a look at this infinity loop, we're tracking all the pathway of growing, distribution, and retail. Each step is important. Each step is critical. We generally know, and if you're in the industry, we call that seed to sale. You say, okay, Brad, that's great. But when you start looking at it on the blockchain and you start attaching consumer efficacy, so the way that actually works is the consumer takes their phone, they have their product, they scan it, they decide to buy it, they're happy with it, then they can download the app and they can, for a rewards program, they can attest to their experience. So that means efficacy for every gram grown and cultivated, starting with the genetics. Once again, looking back at that problem we're having in Canada, it's just impossible to have that problem if you're using our solution. And that's where the growth and that what we're seeing is coming out. So that QR code underneath it, with all that technology, drives some big revenue. It's an interesting revenue model. We have obviously SaaS licensing that we look at it on a per gram basis. Everything for us is per gram, on what we call grams under contract. And over a 2-year period, you're going to see on 128 million grams, that's going to drive $25 million in SaaS licensing. Now, because that information is all attested to onto a public blockchain that anybody can see, and we own the blockchain, this is where we get to the point that we can sell the data. And when you take a look at that, you're looking at a huge amount of revenue over a period of time at 65% margins. Our go-to-market strategy is already in place. We look at kind of 4 regional initiatives. The first one started, obviously, we kicked it off in Israel. It's a small market, but it's a growing market. Like I said, when you say to somebody, I want you to add more cost to something, that can create challenges for anything. Even if it keeps on the right side of the regulator, we all want to do it cheaper. What this does do is 2 things. It's very unique. The software is very unique. It does one thing. It increases sales and it decreases compliance costs. Very few solutions, but that's just the nature of this industry. And I want to say the dysfunction of this industry. We need a tool out there, and there's been a lack of these types of tools. So what Affixi does, for example, with Bless, an Israeli cultivator, they've actually been able to get the Israeli regulator to sign off on it using the QR code system. So once again, this is reducing their compliance costs. That's huge. If you know anything, I spent a lot of time working in Israel. If you know anything about how that system works, it's so overly regulated. And the idea, once again, is technology is paving the way forward and lowering their compliance costs. And we're continuing to roll that out in Israel, and that is getting a lot of traction and sticky for us in our sales pipeline. We just recently, probably our biggest deal that we announced was we're working with a company called CBD Agrocasa out of Europe. They're the largest CBD producer or cultivator generator in Europe. They actually grow 120 million grams of hemp to produce millions of liters. We're doing a small trial based on 2 million grams of CBD And what they're going to do is they're going to use that to drive sales. They want their consumers to have confidence. So there's going to be a product, a QR code on every package, so all the way from cultivation all the way through, because for them, they understand this is something new. Consumers need confidence. They want to know it is. There's no standard reporting beyond a lab test that most people never see. And now it may be weird. So this track and trace, back to trace or track again, the whole seed to seed argument is going to give consumers, they're using that to drive sale. We continue to make further gains into Europe. It's a heavily kind of like, you know, we have 50 different states, all countries, all kind of bouncing off in each other. The primary opportunity is here is to give regulators something they can sink their teeth into and give companies a tool that will work for them. In Canada, we've taken a different approach just because of the nature of the Canadian system. What we're doing right now is we applied for with Health Canada a non-possession selling license. So what we're doing, everyone is sort of sticking ourselves in between the growers and in between the consumers. We're going to work with the patients, educate them on why they should only be using products that have this on it, and we'll give these growers over here access to these guys only if they're using our software. We get additional SaaS licensing revenue and then data sales licensing, but we also make another revenue stream where we're taking wholesale prices and marking it up. We're going to take the same approach from what we're learning in these different regions in the United States as things open up and we're understanding what the framework will be. The biggest thing right now, I think, in the States is can cannabis cross borders? So we're looking at regions. We've got a footprint that we're expanding in places like New Jersey and Florida, which have been open to the construct. But once again, everybody's looking for guidance and ideas that will make this more palatable and be able to have some level of accountability and responsibility, protect consumerisms, but not squelch the ability to make money. I wanted to announce today with our partners out of Israel, we're announcing a franchise model, which will be launching over the next couple of quarters. There's a huge amount of growers in South Africa, South America, and even in Israel that are small to medium size that we feel that are underserved. They have extremely low production costs because of the temperature, but they're struggling in compliance and genetics and all these things they need to do. So we'll be launching a franchise, what we like to call the subway model of cannabis, and that will drive a significant amount of sales for us, once again, through SaaS and through franchise fees. All right. The net aggregate of all these issues, like we talked about before, over a 2-year period, we're looking at $48 million in sales on 128 million grams under contract. And that actually generates, exciting part for me as a CEO is I just see over, that's like over 200,000 patients using it and 3 billion data points collected on the blockchain that we own. All right, so everybody loves a good graph. And so it's kind of fun to have a revenue graph that matches over to, that also matches over to a stock graph. But I think there's two things. There's no sense moving forward and doing really well with revenue if you've got a, how can I put a lack of a better term, a fugly balance sheet. We've been a startup. We've been to do what we had to do to get here. So the commitment of the management and the C-level team is to clean that balance sheet up, right? And so as you saw in this particular press release, we're actually in the process of enforcing a security for a delinquent debt of $5 million. That means that there's a whole bunch of stock. Actually, 7% of the float is coming back. Knock on wood, that's going to be back sooner, a lot sooner rather than later. That's our commitment. Clean the balance sheet so each step forward on our revenue is not us, doesn't, you know, it's like I said, it's not one step forward, 2 steps back type of thing. And then that should obviously reflect into the growth of the stock chart. All right, so, you know, like I said, we've got a lot of fans out there. To that point, it seems like analysts are pretty bullish on us right now, and I'll take it. We've been recommended by barchart.com as an 88% buy. Morningstar shows us totally undervalued. This is at when, you know, we're before the kind of the tech stocks got hit last week. But, you know, we're still looking, everybody's saying we should be at least in 3 months, 50 cents to 95 cents. You know, we have a running average day VWAP kind of before the downward turn in the market last week. excuse me, right now, currently we have a running day 45-day average of close to 30 cents a share. And when you consider that we came from 1.5 cents 7 months ago, and it's based on execution, as you saw in the press releases, we're heading into a good position. So great ways to kind of get into how to get involved. I'm going to be very pragmatic at this point, or sorry, aggressive at this point, the opposite of that, and say, look, we're listed on the OTC, we're listed on the APP. If in Europe, we're listed on the Frankfurt under, you can find us there. Additionally, we do have a private placement that is open right now. We've been very successful raising money up to this point this year. We are doing a larger round at 21 cents now for $5 million with a 30-cent 3-year warrant. This is all in Canadian dollars, like I like to call, Northern pesos. It's just, it's a better buy for our American friends. If you're if you're an accredited investor, please feel free to kind of let us know. When you look at those returns that we've been able to do just on the last 2 raises at a 10.5 cent share, just a 2.5 times return on that PP in 23 days. And as you can see here on the last one we did in February 22nd, a 3 times return on those shares in 12 days. So we're in the right position. I believe we're in the right field. And obviously, a lot of people have talked about cannabis being, it's the gold mine. The fact is, the people who make the real money are not the miners or the people who sell picks and shovels, and that's how we view ourselves, and that seems to be playing out well for us. We run a lean operation, but that doesn't mean we're not deep. For example, our partners over at Abbey, Brian Collins, the CEO over there, is a 20-plus year NASDAQ CEO. He's originally from Ireland, lives in Switzerland. If we talked anymore, I'm pretty sure I'm going to sound like I'm from Dublin at the end of these conversations. Jeff Hazlett is on our board, former CMO of Kodak globally, and we have some of the best and brightest minds from Canada and Israel helping us out on the cannabis side. Capitalization structure, like I said, here's where we're listed. Here's our operations. Our average daily volume is 1.1 million shares. We're doing extremely well. So what next? It's pretty simple. Execution, and revenue. My goal, like I said, is to make sure that the next time that we talk, we have a whole set of new press releases, an even greater stock kind of increase, and reporting those strong revenues that we see we can help achieve today. So to that point, thank you very much. That's happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much. Great presentation. We do have a question. Can you let the audience know if you're contemplating a COVID testing feature inside of Affixi?
Everybody in COVID, right? Well, I somehow I just I get asked this so often. Maybe you guys can just advance that one slide for me to the next one. Anna?
Well, that's on their end. If they can't advance the slide, then you might just be able to talk about it.
So to answer your question, yes. More to follow. I'm just saying yes. There you go. There's the oh, look at that. Request a COVID vaccine.
All right.
Just saying.
Well, we're finishing up on time. Would you like to have any closing remarks and remind everyone where they can find you?
Yeah, for sure. Once again, listen, it's a lot of a lot of hard work, a lot of dedication. If you take back, go look at our press releases, look what we've done, where we've come. We've got $6.5 million investment into this to generate a $55 million plus company. We'll continue. We're in revenue. As hopefully you've seen, we can solve real world problems. And the goal and the objective through all of this is to what we like to say, create better outcomes for medical cannabis patients. If we focus on that, that's what's going to make the difference in growing the industry. Will move regulations, that will drive consumerism, focusing on that. we've made the investment, we've got it, we're out to market. If you have any questions, please reach out to us. You can email me directly at bmore@cannabiscorp.com. You can, like I said, we're available on 3 different exchanges. And if you're interested in the private placement, please do email me directly. So thank you very, very much.
Wonderful. We do have a few more questions, so if you want to answer them now, we can. Otherwise, we can send them directly to you. You ready to answer a few more?
I am always, yeah.
All right. It's about QR codes. Someone says, I see some other QR codes on products. How does yours differ, and do you have competitors?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So it's really, technology is always about processes and things you put together. There's nothing unique about a QR code. There's really, blockchain is kind of unto itself is nothing new. Even algorithms, machine learning isn't. It's the mechanism on how you put it together. The process of attestations as what we do, as represented by the QR codes, is extremely unique. And that's why even before we kind of we were envisioning this in December 2019 with that patent. So not only do we have, let's say, as you can see from the investment, a leading competitive product or leading product, we actually have the patent to back it up about how you do that. So if I was working with a regulator, they said, that's great, Brad, but unfortunately, we can't single source. That's great. Anybody else can come in with whatever they have, but it sure better not work that way because that's a patent. The point is just to protect our lead. And that goes to the question, who are our competitors? There's a lot of seed to sale, a lot of seed to sale. Is there efficacy attached? No. And it's much more beyond that. It's much more at those attestations, the output of the algorithms, the feedback information. It's that full closed loop system all the way through. It's a very modular system. The technology is modular, so we made that investment that it can work depending on what a regulatory framework requires it. So we definitely have first mover advantage. We've been at this a long time, and that's just functionally how long it took to get it done, but also for the market to be ready for. It's tragic what's happening around stuff like that with Canopy and those other growers, but for us, it's what we've been yelling from our, the rooftops. This needs to be resolved. So hopefully that answers your question.
It does. And if we get any more, then we'll send them directly to you. But thank you so much, Brad. Great presentation. And we look forward to following all of your updates in the future.
Amazing. Thanks, Anna. Thanks, everybody.
All right. We're going to take